What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Social Club, where you know everybody's got a voice. I'm your host, Serge, and this weekend on Sunday's segment, we're revisiting a topic from last week that seemed to put quite a bit of our following in a whirlwind. Now, before we get into the good stuff, guys, happy Sunday. Get your coffee, have your breakfast, say your prayers, whatever you do in the Sunday routine. But after you get all that done, make sure you go jam that subscribe button down below. Follow us on all social media platforms. You know the stretch. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, TikTok, everything you could imagine your thumb to scroll through. You can find us on it. So go ahead and pop in and make sure you follow and subscribe for all the upcoming content coming your way. To those that are already part of the movement, you know the deal. We thank you and we're happy to have you here. Now, on this Sunday's episode, I'm going to be reopening a can of worms that had our notifications stacking up pretty early on this week. You know what I'm talking about, Shedeur Sanders' tank in the NFL draft. And listen, I'm only going to be going through a couple of these comments that really caught my eye as I was going through responding, and we were kind of bouncing ideas off each other in the group chat. But ultimately, I want to make sure we are clear that the result of Shedeur tanking in the draft has absolutely nothing to do with him being a black quarterback in America, but all the more reality behind the hype train he sold us all on, just not turning out to be all that much hype. The first one I want to bring to light is A1001_F. He had commented pretty later on in the day, but it felt like one of the first responses that was pretty thought out. And I quote, "They felt like Shedeur Sanders wasn't good enough. Proof is they drafted every wide receiver from the Buffs. That's them saying they think the wide receivers covered up Sanders' flaws." This is a response I have to say I agree with thoroughly and wholeheartedly. It's no secret. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars got their star of the show with the second pick of the draft, Travis Hunter. You look a little bit later in the rounds, in the sixth round, Carolina picked up Jimmy Horn Jr. The Ravens, they got LeJontay Wester. Hell, even, what's that kid's name? What's his name? Oh, Will Shepard. He ended up getting drafted by the Bucs as an undrafted free agent. There's no doubt about it. That wide receiver room had a pool of talent there. I mean, we're talking about four guys who each averaged over 12 yards a catch. Two of the four in double digits for touchdowns on the season. Those numbers don't come from luck. And although I'm not here to say that, Shedeur, wasn't contributing to that success, he's obviously throwing them the pill to get there. But I think a lot of, his last name and the moments he did get bailed out of really do overshadow the areas of improvement that he really does need to hone in on. And I think that those areas of improvement are more of what turned off, NFL scouts than it was anything else. Considering these same NFL scouts gave Shedeur a 6.30 overall draft grade, that's forecasting a very mediocre career in the NFL when he does get to start. I think it's safe to say that, a bit of your take is a bit true there, A1001_F. Now, Shedeur's so great, sir. He was supposed to go in the first round. I thought that he'd go right after Cam Ward. How did Tyler Show get picked up before him? I'll say I'm mocking a lot of those reactions you guys are having right now, but the last one, I have no idea. The New Orleans Saints are idiotic for picking up that kid before Shedeur. I don't know what they saw in him. I guess they just want to be in for, the foreseeable future. But with all that said, guys, again, I'm not here to say Shedeur is a bad quarterback. I just think that he was a little hyped. The last name obviously holds some weight to it, but let's talk about him and his play. Now, where are these areas he can improve on? I'll say if you look at the NFL scouting reports, it's a lot of the same jargon from organization to organization. These aren't scouts nitpicking and judging his game and trying to pick him apart or whatnot. These are genuine areas of concern that if you're going to be an NFL, if you're going to be an NFL quarterback, let alone a franchise quarterback, you have to have already either developed in these areas or you got to develop quick. Two of the biggest ones that you'll see go from report to report is a tendency to hold on to the ball too long. We know Shedeur does that, and he tends to take the sack when he does. But with that, too, it also goes to show he has an inability to make decisions on the go. When that first read's not there, he goes into a bit of a panic. When he goes into that bit of a panic, he tends to freeze up. When he tends to freeze up, that's when he takes the sack. It's a chain event. And all that said, he struggles decently in that area. Now, when his first read's not there and he already knows where to find a second read, he's going to get it there. Pinpoint accuracy. But then also comes in a bit of concern too with the elite arm strength. In the scouting reports, they do mention a lot of concern with him getting the ball into tight windows. Given I've only seen some of his play, I watched him for about half the season, like personally myself. But with that too, like those are two areas that as a franchise quarterback in the league, you've got to be, if you're not already there, you got to be real close. You combine all those concerns, which are genuine fundamentals that a franchise quarterback in the league needs to have. You throw on the arrogance, you throw on the inability to be coached, that dismissiveness of whenever he's getting feedback. What's the term? Not taking constructive criticism well. You pair that with the dad that's in your ear that thinks you're the next coming of Jesus, and you just end up having, 1, 2, 3, 32 organizations that don't want to really mess with you, dog. And I mean, I'll say 31 because the Browns finally came around. It just says a lot about the profile. It says a lot about the character. It says a lot about him as a person. But at no point, and I want to reiterate, at no point does this point to him being a black QB. And I've seen the reports that, the league is trying to silence a confident black quarterback, somebody who knows his worth, somebody who's, not going to settle for much in an organization. I've got news for you guys. None of that matters, bro. Like, it just doesn't. It really doesn't matter at all. Nobody cares about silencing, a loud quarterback and all that mess. Like, it's more when it comes down to if you've got that kind of juice, great. Come in the league, have that confidence, we'll build around it. But when you have that kind of confidence and you don't have the accolades to back it, we're talking about a guy, given he did bring Colorado out the dirt, but let's also consider there's no championship. There's, no bowl game wins. There's, they made it to the second round of playoffs, I think. And what's the show for it? Travis Hunter getting Heisman, which is great. That's awesome. But what's that say for Shedeur? Nothing. Like, you can't think that you're this... I'll be honest. The entire pre-draft process, I did not think that this man was going number one. I was saying he might go top 10, but that was me thinking that, the Giants were going to pick him up, and they just like, no. I had no idea that interview went so terribly, but these are the things that make up the picture. You can't have bad interviews. You can't be unprepared. You put all those pieces in front of an NFL GM, and you ask him to make a decision to draft this kid. And the icing on the cake is the non-pro style playbook that Colorado ran. I get it worked for them, but it's very simplistic, it's very one-dimensional, and it doesn't do him any favors, preparing for the complexities that you'd see in an NFL playbook of any organization. I think that, that's just bad strategy. If you got it down, that's awesome. Like, I'm glad you can have that in college, but when you're wanting to prepare yourself to play at the next level, you've got to be doing things to play at the next level, not exceed at the current. So with all that said, I just want to come back to the fact that this was never a situation where it came down to him being a black quarterback knowing his talent. This came down to it being a quarterback in the NCAA that had some talent, but, had the hype behind it that was just a little bit overshadowing it. And I think that, throughout the success that Colorado had throughout the season, I think a lot of the country was really excited about this kid. To see him take an organization like that was pretty much defeated in general, to getting them just over 500 and having some really exciting games, some really great games against, some good, decent competition. You put all that into perspective throughout the regular season, you're like, man, he's a dog. This kid's going to be, electrifying. But when it comes to a close and you got to put everything on paper and line him up against guys like Cam Ward, even Dylan Gabriel, it's just one of those things that you can't really look past. He tends to fall down the ladder. Now, that brings me to the next comment I wanted to follow up on, and this is actually going to be in an umbrella bit of a response to the majority of the remaining comments that were under the short video. Thoughts of a black man had commented and posted, laughing, crying face, laughing, crying face, laughing, crying face. Everything is literally about race, and 2 more laughing, crying faces. Now, I responded to this one in real time, me personally, and I said, I'll actually read it to you. It doesn't have to be, though. For instance, we can't say Shedeur didn't get drafted because he's a black man when the first 2 picks of the draft were both black men. It's obvious the teams just didn't value what he could bring to the field, at least not until late day 3. in which he comes back to say the country literally has systems in place against black people. Stop the gaslighting. This country is inherently racist and everything is about race. Saying a black person was drafted first is exactly what racists think. Now, this is where I want to, kind of give my input a bit. There's no secret, we still live in a world that shares racism amongst some of its views, and I think that when you look at the former time before I was ever born, it was much worse. Heck, even when I was a kid, it was much worse. It's very uncommon to it's very radical to live a racist morale in current day generation. You have closet racists, you have, vocal racists, whatever you want to call it. I don't really care. But when you look at the NFL, when you look at sports in modern day, you are in a position where we're seeing the result of how sports in general were a catalyst in integration in America. Then you look at other sports like basketball, NFL, coming out of the 80s and the 90s. I mean, sure, we may not have been, star players. They wouldn't let a black guy play quarterback, but they were getting even contracts. They were getting to play in the big leagues. And current day, you look around, there's more blacks than there are anything in both of those sports combined. Like, I understand the point is that racism is still amongst us. Nobody ever said racism is it's not in sports. It's never been in sports. Nobody's saying that. There's still very, very casual racists in just about every aspect of life to this day. But I think what Hale was trying to get to the point of saying is that sports is the reason. It is a very large reason as to why society is the way it is today. When, two people of two different backgrounds could come together to root for a same cause or a similar cause, that being their favorite sport team. We're talking about, the Blues, the Cardinals, the Rangers, the Cowboys, the Avalanche, whoever I don't know, man. It broke the wall down. And when we come back to current day, let's go back to the draft. There is nothing about that draft that said Shedeur as a black man doesn't deserve to play in this league. That's not owners trying to stick it to him and his dad. That's the owners trying to humble this kid because they're like, your head's just a little bit too big. And it's not because he's black. It's because he's not as talented as everybody's saying he is. Or at least what we all thought. You can't have a season like you did last year and come out and tank interviews. You can't flop on pro day. You can't talk a big game and not walk it. Shedeur is talking like he just won the damn Heisman. Like he just came out of a national title. He did none of those things. And I think that it's easy. I think it's easy for everybody to say it's about race. And it takes away the credibility of what the actual truth is. And it also turns the heads to what the actual truth is. And I'm going to say it again, and it'll be one last time, is that the hype that was created for Shedeur Sanders turned out to not be the hype we expected it to be at all. It was never about race. Again, thoughts of a black man. I know there's casual racists. I know there's racism in the world all around us. This is not one of those moments. And it won't be. Now, in closure, I want to put this argument to bed. I want to move on from it. It's already behind us. Shedeur's been drafted. He's probably going to get traded off the Browns at some point. It's all over. It happened. But what I want to revisit is that, once again, this was never a situation about him being a dominant black quarterback in the league. If anything, and I'll give Shedeur, he went into a dying program, breathed life into it, did some great things with the Colorado program. He made some star athletes. Heck, like we said already, every wide receiver that was starting with Colorado's been drafted or got picked up as an undrafted free agent. He's a talented kid. But when you look at it, on paper it seems great. But when you compare his style of play to that of Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, quite a few of the other guys that, honestly, if you compare his play to every quarterback that got drafted before him, excluding Tyler Show, I want to reiterate, excluding Tyler Show, I don't even know why he's in the draft. I'm not going to go down that road right now. But if you compare Shedeur to every quarterback that got drafted before him, you will see, when you consider strictly raw talent, it's a pretty close race amongst all of them. When you bring in fundamental skill, coherency, and the ability to adapt into these, complex situations of, schemes and playbooks and packages that they're going to be running in the NFL with whatever organization they're going to go up against, who seems to be the most prepared? Now, don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. Don't take these words and twist them. Don't make them what they're not. I love Shedeur. I love the Sanders family. I think what Dion did for football, immaculate. I think Shedeur, very talented kid. He's got a decent head on his shoulders. I hope he sees some success in the NFL. Shiloh, I mean, I have no reason to dislike you. I genuinely don't. I just don't think you're a good football player. I think that you just, you're kind of good enough to get picked up. I love the Sanders family. I think that what Dion has done with, Shedeur and Shiloh, it's a bit of the LeVar Ball effect. Most organizations don't want to take on that kind of dad. I get, he's one of the greatest to ever do it at his position. But with that in mind, he's still a father. At the end of the day, he's still going to be in that coach's ear when that starting QB is tanking and he's talking about put my son in the game. That's going to happen. No coach wants to go through that. So I think there was a lot of factors after the season that really did, tarnish Shedeur's profile. I think coming out of the 2024 season last year, he had good things ahead of him. I think that, he wouldn't have went number one overall by any means, but I think he could have got picked up a lot earlier had, he interviewed better, had Dion not been his ear about, you need to be interviewing with this team, you don't need to meet with that team, you don't want to talk to that team, this is the only team you want to be reaching out to. There's a lot of influence, there's a lot of moving factors that really did ultimately result in this being the case, but at no point. And with all this said, I will end it I will come to a close after I say this one last time. At no point was it about race. We need to stop making everything about race when it doesn't go our way. It's simple. The kid didn't have the grit, he didn't have the talent that, organizations needed out of him to be their franchise quarterback. That's that. It doesn't get any more complex than that. Now that I'm done ranting, I will say that's going to wrap up our Sunday segment. Thanks to the guys that did hop in the comments and give us some reactions and some feedback. We always love to get in there and go back and forth with you. So absolutely make sure you hop in these comments as well, too. We got some more videos and some more content coming your way this week. But with all that in mind, it's been a pleasure having you guys again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. It's been Serge. Social Club out.